Petra Graves had never seen anyone's neck do that before. The alien's teal frills had fanned out like a startled peacock the moment Mr. Henderson's golden retriever barked from behind the fence. That was 40 minutes and 11 houses ago. The frills had not gone down. Instead, they vibrated with a low, subharmonic hum that Petra could feel in her own molars every time they passed a well-manicured hedge. Oakwood Drive was usually a quiet loop of suburban comfort. Today, it felt like a tactical gauntlet. Vrelek, the Vrelian tourism scout, walked 3 paces behind her, his digitigrade legs clicking nervously on the asphalt. He carried a sleek obsidian datapad that pulsed with frantic crimson light every time a squirrel twitched in the treetops. Petra shifted her mailbag, the leather strap digging into her shoulder with the familiar weight of utility bills and junk mail. She reached for the next house's mailbox. Clack snap. The spring-loaded lid echoed down the street. Vrelek jumped, his frills snapping into a tight, vertical fan that nearly obscured his eyes. "Acoustic signature recorded," he whispered, his voice a series of dry, rapid clicks. "Small-scale metallic concussive event. Petra, why are we still advancing? My scanner indicates a high-density protein mass behind that wooden barrier." "That's just a fence, Vrelek," Petra said, slipping a grocery circular into the slot. "And the protein mass is Barnaby. He's a pug. He's mostly made of snoring and bad breath. You're going to want to stay for the moment Vrelek realizes what the leash is actually for. I promise it changes everything you think you know about your own living room." They reached the edge of the Miller property. A nylon cord, bright neon orange, stretched taut from the porch to a heavy oak tree. Attached to it was a beagle named Luna. The dog sat perfectly still, watching them with soul-piercing brown eyes. Vrelek froze. He raised his datapad, his teal skin flushing a bruised shade of deep purple, a clear sign of a skyrocketing predator response. "The restraint system is insufficient," Vrelek stated, his breathing shallow and rhythmic. "Tensile strength of the nylon polymer is approximately 400 pounds. The organism possesses a skeletal structure capable of sudden, lethal kinetic bursts. If the cranial pressure exceeded, wait, why is the human's hand in its mouth?" Petra looked over. Mrs. Miller was indeed prying a half-chewed tennis ball from Luna's jaws. "She's just getting the ball, Vrelek. He doesn't mind. He's a good boy." "A good boy is not a tactical classification." Vrelek's frills began to tremble. A data stream scrolled across his visor, flashing historical archives pulled from the planet's localized network. According to the Vrelian's deep scan, the creature sitting on the porch shared 98.8% of its DNA with the gray wolf. 15,000 years. That was the number that stalled Vrelek's analytical processor. Beneath the pleasant suburban sunlight, his scanner traced the lineage of the wagging tail back through the ice ages to the pack hunters that once stalked the frozen dark. The humans hadn't conquered these predators with superior weaponry. They had invited them to sleep by the fire. They had domesticated a nightmare through the sheer, baffling audacity of companionship. They rounded the corner to the Henderson place. This was the big one. Luna had been a warm-up. The golden retriever waiting at the end of the driveway was a different level of atmospheric pressure entirely. 230 psi, Vrelek murmured. "What was that?" Petra asked. "The bite force," the alien replied, his teal frills flaring so wide they brushed his shoulders. "His jaw is a biological vice, and you are carrying paper." Hay passed a woman being dragged by a massive, muscular canine that strained against its leather leash until its breath came in ragged wheezes. Vrelek's scanner screamed with a red-tear warning, but he watched the woman simply laugh and adjust her grip as she was pulled along the sidewalk. Petra waved. "That's just Daisy," she said dismissively. The scout noted that the restraint system had failed. The predator was now controlling the human's trajectory. Petra didn't stop. She walked right up the Henderson driveway, her boots crunching on stray gravel. A rhythmic, wet thwack sounded nearby as a lawn sprinkler slapped against a white plastic fence, sending a fine mist onto Vrelek's trembling teal skin. Behind the fence, Biscuit was waiting. The golden retriever wasn't on a leash. He was just standing there, his mouth open in what a human would call a grin, but what Vrelic's scanner identified as a preliminary cooling maneuver for an active biological engine. Looking down the length of Oakwood Drive, Vrelic counted 14 active predatory threats lurking in the manicured grass and behind thin panes of glass, ranging from the domestic canines to the sharp-eyed hawks circling above in the humid suburban heat. Yet the human woman beside him walked through this valley of teeth with nothing but a leather bag and a stack of overdue electric bills. He stared at the golden retriever's mouth. Calculations indicate a 98% mortality, but the tail is moving horizontally. Vrelic didn't move. Biscuit trotted forward, his heavy paws thumping on the driveway. He didn't growl. Instead, he dropped a piece of wood at the alien's feet. It was a 3-year-dead piece of oak, grayed by weather and soggy with 230 psi of canine intent. "He wants to say hi," Petra said, reaching down to scratch the thick fur behind Biscuit's ears. The dog's eyes rolled back in bliss and the tail's rhythmic thumping increased. Vrelic's neck frills, which had been rigid enough to cut glass, slowly began to lose their tension. He looked at the discarded orange leash on the neighboring lawn and then back at the dog. The realization hit him with the force of a planetary collision. The leash wasn't a restraint system. It was a formality. The predator was walking the human because it chose to, bound by a 15,000-year-old promise of warmth and scraps. Vrelic looked at the 3-year-dead piece of oak in his trembling hand. The terrifying restraint system of the neighborhood had been discarded, replaced by a much older, invisible bond that no scanner could quantify. As the transport hummed toward the stars, the scout sat in silence. He held the stick close, a jagged souvenir of a world where predators chose to be friends.